Welcome to More Than a Conversation, the podcast where we meet and have discussions with some of the most interesting people and innovative leaders in their fields from all walks of life. We will be discussing everything from politics to theology to religion to philosophy to life. Every once in a while, I may just be on here talking about whatever's in the news and whatever I think will be of interest to you. This is your host, Patrick Connolly, and I hope that today will be more than a conversation for you. Welcome to More Than a Conversation. This is your host, Patrick Connolly, and today I am joined by somebody that I found through like the coolest online video that I've seen in a while. I'm scrolling. I'm trying not to doom scroll. I'm trying to scroll and find the happy stuff, trying to glee fresh instead of doom scrolling. But I'm scrolling and I see a guy who's putting on a demonstration in a gym, and he's putting on a self-defense demonstration and disarming an unwitting person in the crowd who he's handed a replica firearm to. And I thought, man, this is cool. And then there was another video, and I said, let me find out. He started actually telling his story. I said, let me find out a little bit more about this guy. And here we are. I'm talking today with Victor Marx, who is the founder of All Things Possible, an incredible ministry. First of all, Victor, thank you for joining us today.
Patrick, what a privilege, man. And I'm glad you got hooked by the gun disarm.
That's right. You got somebody over there is putting the marketing out in the right place, and we got to see you. And here's the thing: I have to ask though, right off the bat, what is, when I see Victor Marx, and then I see the description that you are a high risk humanitarian.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a pastor, and that can be pretty high risk in the humanitarian sometimes. But what is a high risk humanitarian?
Well, we actually got tagged high risk missionary from the special operations community. And it's because we've been doing work in non-permissive environments. For instance, when ISIS, really overtook a large part of northern Iraq, we went in there. And we were recovering women and children. We were helping kids who'd been shot, from spine shots to face shots. We were doing both medical and then just humanitarian relief. Example, one day we have our team, we're driving in. Now we move in armored vehicles and we carry weapons, and people kind of go, well, that's kind of weird missionary humanitarian work. I said, not if you're being shot at. So, we roll up and there's people running toward us, and ISIS is shooting and mortaring them. So we're giving them water, food. We've had to be put in positions where we had to provide protection for such. So that's where we kind of got tagged the high risk, humanitarians. Because along with my friend Dave Eubank of Free Burma Rangers, our last mission, we led a team into Iraq, then into Syria, then into an ISIS confinement camp with 70,000 ISIS wives and children, and then had to get out of fast and quick. And it was almost like a movie because the intelligence group there for the Kurds let us use one of their boats to get across the Tigris River, which was at flood stage because we had to get out of the country very quickly. So is that a bird's eye view enough?
That is a bird's eye view of high risk humanitarian work. Now, you said something right there that I think just stood out to me. So you guys are in Iraq, I'm assuming, and you have this group of people that are coming to receive aid. These are civilians.
Yep.
And ISIS is actively shooting them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, when they were liberating Mosul, different cities from Iraq, when people who were being held captive or under their, wicked control, when they'd see Iraqi forces of Peshmerga, they'd make a break and start running for the line, right, to get on the good side. And ISIS snipers and just, fire teams would just be slaughtering people.
Wow. When you go into these places and you you see all the things that are happening, all the stuff that's going on. I can give you a moment there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, hang on a sec. All right, didn't see that coming. That snuck up on me.
Nah, man, I think that's the reality of what you're dealing with and what drew me to you. And honestly, to everybody that's listening, what's going to draw them is, for so many of us, we have no concept. We have no clue. To us, mission work is a guy with a slide that comes by the church. And now I guess we got some fancier technology and shows us some things, and we give some money, and that's kind of the end of it. Or maybe we take a trip where we all get, on a plane and fly to a safe place and deal with, and I'm not minimizing that work. All that matters.
Right.
But what makes a guy say, man, I'm going to go do that? I mean, why? Why do you get up and do that?
Patrick, you asked the right questions. And I think it stems from, when I was a kid, my father didn't claim me as his own. My mother wasn't well emotionally and got involved in horrible situations. But I ended up being abused as a young kid and tortured, and I was left for dead in a commercial cooler. And I know what it's like to not have hope, and I know what it's like to hate humanity and understand the reality of injustice. So I fled from all that, through, of course, troubled teens, drugs, alcohol. Then I joined the Marine Corps. They gave me a place to vent my anger. And actually, I hated Arabs because of a bombing that had happened in Lebanon. So literally the day after the bombing in Beirut, Lebanon, which killed a bunch of Marines, I went to the recruiter and signed up. And I definitely had a hard go of it. I served underneath President Reagan during the Cold War. As far as emotionally, I had a hard go of it, trying to work through issues and challenges. And, when you're driven to be hypervigilant and filled with a hate, see, I think anger is good. I think more Christians need to be angry for the right reasons. But I think hatred is where we start getting into sin, and it starts hardening a person's heart. So for me, when I ended up coming to faith, eventually through many things, and, the Lord just led me to a place where I knew I was called to reach those that most people would feel uncomfortable reaching. Certainly not because I have or possess some type of courage or want to try to do stuff because, people go, oh my gosh, you guys are heroes. I go, well, I think, I'm an ordinary person that's been privileged to do extraordinary things by simply trying to obey God and to go and to help where he's told me. So, but I'm surrounded by team members who I call heroes. I mean, my gosh, my chief of operations is a 25-year veteran of special operations, and he retired from Delta as a lieutenant colonel, leading teams into over 1,000 missions. And man, and now, we like to go after and help those who need help in very non-permissive environments. And then we love to seek justice for those who've been hurt or harmed.
It's amazing. You talk about you've got somebody from Delta that's on your team. You talk about you're a guy who grew up with all this anger. And in your book, The Victor Marx Story, which everybody who's listening, you got to get a copy of that book. It's available everywhere that books are sold. But in the book, you talk about all the things that happened, and maybe we'll unpack some of that today.
Yeah.
But one of the things you say in the book, and it kind of stands out to me because you got this guy from Delta. Now, when we think a retired guy doing that, we think of somebody who's got a different mission than saving lives, than treating trauma. I mean, you think you got a guy who creates trauma. That's what he does.
Right.
But now you're involved in something differently, or he's involved in something different. You're a guy who's got all this anger. So you join the Marines. You're going to vent that anger somewhere. And then you say something that stands out. You say that you think that Christians need to be angry.
Yeah.
And, we weigh that, of course, with the words of Christ, talking about he doesn't tell us not to be angry. And then in the book, you actually say, I'm not saying I'm a pacifist because that is not biblical. So help me understand all of these things. Bring it together for me.
Right.
Again, you're into martial arts. You got all these things happening. Where does Christian anger come in?
Yeah. Well, I think there's been a false narrative perpetrated upon, I'm going to say, the Western church, just so that, where we've been off a couple of degrees and angles. And I think that people have equated godliness is equal to our best behavior, our being passive. And I don't believe that. Sometimes I believe you're closer to godliness if you have directed anger against injustice and the forces of darkness, and it's fueled by courage. Because, I'm gonna be blunt with you, Patrick, right? Because that's you're having me on your show, so edit it if you like. But and if anybody doesn't like what I'm saying, email him. So I would say this, that there's a lot of cowards in Christianity and a lot of very weak-willed jelly-spine pastors standing behind pulpits. And it's one of the reasons why I think our nation is in such a hurt lock. We compromised when we decided we wanted more people in our church than we wanted more disciples and followers of Christ. That's what it boils down to. And look, I tell people, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a theologian. I have studied and I've taught, but it's like this. When we started doing pumps into Iraq and Syria, I would have the super saint, and it would be the pastor or someone aspiring go, well, are you preaching to the Muslims, man? What's going on? Those are, and I go, well, I've got Muslims on my team. I've got full-blown Muslims who are some of the nicest, high integrity men of character that I would have on my team before some guys who are on staff and professional Christians, because I want a guy that's willing to die for me like I am him. And I've lived it and I've seen it. And I tell them people, well, maybe I'm not preaching the gospel like I should, but I've probably been reduced to living it. So why don't you come on over and show me how you do it? Because I have very target-rich environments of lots of Muslims that I can drop you right in the middle, and you just show me how you would do it different. Now, do I have people come to faith? Oh, heck yeah. But guess what? It's not by my hand. It's by the power of God's Spirit. And do we tell them the truth? Absolutely. But I won't sit there and argue with anybody. I'll contend for the faith and what I believe, but I'd rather have them look at me and say, why are you here? And I just simply say, because I love God, he loves me, and he tells me to love y'all and to help you stand against forces of darkness and help your children, help those in need. And it blows their mind. I mean, it blows their mind. I'll say one more thing. I've never had a Muslim turn me down to pray for him, ever, including an ISIS commander that was just captured at my feet. But I tell you what, there's plenty of professing Christians that if you have 2 words sideways with them and you disagree and you say, well, you want to pray? They're like, no, forget about it. Like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I get that. In one of the things, if I try to tell people that's a great, to me, conversation opener wherever I'm at, if I'm at a restaurant, whatever, I can easily ask somebody, hey, can I pray for you? And what can I pray for you about? And it's interesting to me that as you're reaching out to people, they're asking you the question. They're going, hey, why are you here? And that gives you that opportunity. But, there's a guy that I think agrees with you in a lot of ways. And he happened to be kind of close to Jesus in that I think he might have been his brother, a guy named James. And he talks about, hey, we could say, hey, be warm, but I don't give you a coat. Be filled, but I don't give you any food. I just did last Sunday, spoke at a funeral of a school administrator, and she was a pastor's wife, but she wasn't like one of these over the top, super spiritual, always going to take it that way. And one of the things I said at the funeral was, She was never the person. I was a principal at the school where she was an administrator. And, you know, at a Christian school, you've got all these guys that have seminary backgrounds and blah, 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 blah. And so she was going to check out if we were having a conversation about, you know, Old Testament pre-incarnate appearances of Christ. You know, we're talking about Christophany. She probably doesn't care. But she was the only Jesus that some people saw appear in their life. You know, she was showing up with the meals. She was giving kids rides. She was waiving tuition for the family that couldn't afford it, whatever it was. And so I think somewhere you speak to something that the church has often missed.
Yeah.
In that we often go a few different ways. We can go where we just become a humanitarian organization and that's all we do. Mm-hmm. But we can go the other way where we think, well, hey, the only thing we're here to do is to have this idea of Christianity. But Christianity is not an idea. It's not a concept. It's not a conversation. It's a set of actions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons why we're hurting here in the U.S. is because of the inaction and inconsistencies of people living out their faith. Simple faith, right? I mean, if we really loved our neighbor like we do ourselves, you think Christianity would look different here? And I'll tell you, I use the word Christianity, and sometimes my skin kind of crawls because I know there's a stigma to that. That's not a title of endearment. And man, you say Christian, and then people start thinking about all the nuts and all the craziness, and you just go. So sometimes I go, well, you know, I just try to follow Jesus. I love his teaching. I love what he stands for. They're like, really? We're going to be starting a radio line of effort where I'm going to be placed on, I think it's over 550 radio stations around the country and overseas. And we're going to be handing out, my goal is to hand out just the Gospels. It's a little booklet that has the 4 Gospels, talks about Jesus. And I'm just like, I will be giving these away free my goal is to give away 100,000 next year in 2021, because I just think people need to get back to the gospel. Jesus, what did he do? How did he act? What did he say? And although I love that bracelet, what would Jesus do? You know, oftentimes I certainly don't feel like, you know, I aspire to that. I made a bracelet one time, my team did. They started handing them out jokingly, and it was WWPD, what would Peter do? Because they're like, hey, boss, you're kind of more like that guy. And I said, I know, right? Chop an ear and then, get freaked out at a fire pit with a girl. And Lord, you sure? And yet the power of God's Spirit, and when we truly believe his word, just the simplicity of it, man, that moves a needle. That increases faith and pushes back, I think, the kingdom of darkness.
Well, I think one of the things that you bring to light is that the concept of Christianity, as great as, In His Steps was, great book, great idea, but the idea of what would Jesus do has become for us, well, what would Jesus think? Or what would Jesus say he would do? Or what would Jesus philosophize about this thing? And Christianity has then become, in so many ways, has become a context in which it's become part of our life rather than being our life.
Oh, I like that, Patrick. I mean, I really like that. To me, I kind of see two extremes. It's you got to appeal to the world. Let's just say as a Christian or a pastor, you got to appeal to the world, or ministry leader. You got to be the cool dude, right? And we see where that ends up taking people. It becomes cultural Christianity. Maybe you get a lot of people, maybe you're popular on social media, whatever, but at what cost, right? We see people fall. Carl Lentz just fell. It's constant. Liberty University, he falls away. It's just boom, boom, boom. And I just go, gosh, every time someone of notoriety falls, now, Ravi Zacharias, they're struggling because of past stuff. And I just think you got that extreme. You got over here where people just are super theologians. And I love doctrine and I love theology. We have to have it. But it's almost where they're so bored and have nothing to do, they just start getting incestuous on, well, let's see, and we'll talk about this. And John Piper just came out yesterday and said, I don't know if you saw the article. He came out and said, well, I think we should excommunicate any Christian that marries a non-believer. I'm like, whoa, okay. Well, if that's true, Pastor Piper, how come you wasn't doing that 10 years ago or 15 years ago if you're really pulling that out of the text? Or why don't we excommunicate the person who wants to marry a non-believer because they're sleeping with them?
Yeah.
Or if you want to keep going, hey, if you got men in your church, you get the password to their computer and do intelligence gathering and find out how many are looking at porn. Start kicking them out. So I'm all for living a life of holiness and obeying the scriptures. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't recommend a Christian to marry a non-believer because I'd be going, you're throwing the dice. You are throwing the dice. And maybe buy 10 lottery tickets and see where you are with your luckiness. Luck. Yeah. Because my luck is just living under Christ's kindness. So I kind of stay in. But can I tell you something? Just an angle off from this that blows me away. Women out there, Christian women, are struggling to find good, godly, moral, masculine men. That is, we have an influx because this year, our social media, we're at over 180 million impressions of people viewing our stuff. We have a finger on the pulse to some things. And it's sad that the men in America in the church, they're not giving the women of the church a solid appetite because they want more. And women deserve more. Man, I've got 3 daughters. I've got 3 granddaughters and another one on the way. And I hope to see a shift instead of this mamsy-pamsy Christian stuff where it's like, I get challenged all the time about things and I don't care. I appreciate it if the conversation is civil and we get somewhere. But man, we need young men and men to just start standing up for what's right. And women are desperate for it. That's a little sidebar, but that's it.
No, I'm with you on that. Honestly, I think one of the biggest issues that I see amongst the church is our lack of masculinity in our men, our lack of fortitude in our men, our idea that nice and kind are the same thing. You got Moses. Moses comes down. They've created this false god, this idol, and after they've created this idol, Moses grinds the thing into powder, puts it in their water, and has them drink it. That doesn't seem very nice. But
he slammed the 10 Commandments for cornflakes. He takes the tablets that God just and he smashes them. That's a dude that got angry at sin because he sees what people are doing. At least I would have put the tablets down, I think, or dropped them on somebody who was, a wicked person, made use of it double.
He'd have had his pick that day. So when we're talking about the idea, I want to go back to something you said. I like to hear people that are in the church but and have a real love for Christ. At the end of the day, there's a lot of criticism for pastors that comes from people that are just like to criticize.
Right.
But you mentioned, your words were jelly spined pastors.
Yeah.
Where is it that you think pastors need to be more resolute in the days that we are living in the Western church? Where do you feel that they're becoming wishy-washy, that they need to be more clear?
It's compromise of what you know to be good or evil. So let's take the election. There's a whole deal about, people going, don't make Trump an idol. He has a horrible personality and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't care if he's a jackass. He's a much better leader than Biden or Harris could ever be. And most importantly, he's not for babies being aborted in the third trimester. You want to know about torture and murder? That's what that is. So my mind gets blown at pastors who want to be culturally relevant, or they justify not taking a stand. I personally believe that any congregation should ask their pastor on these certain issues, where do you stand? So, I had mentioned a Christian rapper, singer, Lecrae, in social media, and it went pretty big, and a couple of other people. And all I simply said was, hey, tell me, are you for abortion? And I always say, third trimester, so that there's no nitty-gritty. Yeah, it's like, hey, are you for a first-term baby? And he wouldn't answer. And then people started asking, and he wouldn't answer. So I pressed it a little bit more and said, I see you're taking pictures with Biden and Harris. Tell us, are you, because you are promoting them, so which means you don't stand against the cause of abortion. This is what I hear from people. It's like, well, there's more issues than abortion. And I go, sure, there sure are. Second right amendments, freedom of religion. I can go all that. But they're like, no, Victor, there's more. And I go, what's more important than saving? I would be the biggest hypocrite. We've helped over 43,000 kids overseas. We just were part of an operation that found, recovered kids who were missing in the U.S. and being sexually abused and trafficked, like over 40 of them. And I would be the biggest hypocrite if I didn't stand up for the unborn children. They are children in a womb. They're alive. I would be the biggest hypocrite. So I just simply say, pastors, take a position. And look, they have every right to be liberal, left. I mean, there are some pastors on the right who are so extreme. I'm like, geez, man, you're going to be the first one to become violent in a confrontation and shoot somebody. Yeah. So, throttle back, dude, throttle back, Yeah. But just take a position of what you believe, and then people need to understand that's what that pastor believes. I personally had a little heartburn with pastors being quiet during this election year, of not saying, hey, out of the choices that we have, man, pray and vote for the one that will protect children and our freedoms. And, that I believe they at least have a responsibility, a civic responsibility to help. Because I've preached over in Germany. And what shocked me the most? It was a really good sized men's gathering, and I spent a few days. What shocked me the most? What they told me, and I was trying to be very careful with all my movements, because I'm like, I'm in Germany. All Germans are bad on the movies. So
yeah, every movie we've seen, right?
Yeah, I'm like, how y'all doing? Oh, hi. I mean, I didn't mean hi. I mean, and they're laughing like,
howdy.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, is he? And but what absolutely blew me away, Patrick, was they said post-war there was a epidemic of pastors committing suicide because they knew their silence and complicitness and compromise to Hitler destroyed millions and millions of lives.
Hey, More Than a Conversation listeners, I hope that you are enjoying this conversation as much as I am, and I hope that you're getting something great out of it today. I'm just wanting to jump in here in the middle to take a moment and let you know a few ways that you can help out More Than a Conversation. First, wherever you're listening, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. That will definitely help, and that'll make sure that you get all the content. Also, if you have a way to rate, if your app allows you to give a 4-star, 5-star, whatever the rating is that's the top rating, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and drop a rating there. That's how the aggregators and the distributors rank podcasts, and the higher the ranking you give, the more ears will be able to hear these great conversations. Thanks again, and I'm hoping that today has been more than a conversation for you. Now let's get back to it.
Wow. And it still affects them to this day. to this day. So, yeah, I just, I think pastors now. I have tons of pastors that, tons, and they love what we do, and they feel like I encourage them to be courageous and step into the pulpit and say what's right, regardless of what people think. But you have to for your own conscience sake. And if you're worried about being fired, well, be fired. It's if you're worried about being fired and you're compromising your message, you shouldn't even be in that place anyway.
Yeah.
That's not like-mindedness. And that will tear up your conscience, man. So be loving, but believe what you believe, because people are looking for leaders. And I'm going to tell you what, not all pastors are leaders, brother. Not all pastors are leaders. And we need more leading right now in our country than just teaching. More leading than teaching. And what I mean by that is people, pastors, ministry people are living out what they're teaching. Not sideways. This is such a silly story, but when I first got into ministry, I was sharing an office space with a pastor of a growing church. And this guy he loved his book library. He was surrounded on all four corners because he was smart. And I love books too, especially one with, not the big words, but I had my pulpit commentary, my G. Campbell Morgan, my Ironside. Does that throw you off a little bit? Did you see that coming, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm with you.
What? Did you see that coming? I know the stuff. And I'll tell you something that happened. It freaked me out. And this was like 20 years ago, because I got in the ministry late in the sense of the one we started. I'm sitting in his office. He's surrounded by all these books. And I look over. I'm like, wow, man, nice collection. He's like, well, yes, blah, blah, blah. And I pull a book out because I have the same book. I pulled it out. I said, I love this book. It's on discipleship making. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer was the first book I ever read. So that might, there's an imprint right there. First Christian book, somebody goes, you're a Marine, you're kind of wild. Read this guy. So I was like, I thought everybody was like Dietrich, right? I was like, oh, okay. But this guy, look at this book. I go, yeah, I love that book. I start opening and fanning through it, and I see his body language. He's kind of squirming. And I look at the front of it, and it's inscripted to me from someone who gave it to me. And I went, dude, this is my book. Did you come in my office? I have a little closet with just one little shelf with some of my top books that I refer. Did you just take my book when I wasn't here one night? He goes, I don't know how that happened, Victor. I don't know. And I'm like, I can tell you how it happened. You're just book idle. And you win it. I was like, dude, you got an issue. And then I end up pulling out 2 or 3 more books. I'm like, seriously. Oh, man.
His whole library was taken.
I'm just like, do you even read them? So, pastors need to be encouraged. I was a pastor for a short time. I've been an assistant pastor at a growing church, and then it became a really big church. And then I was a pastor. I planted a church, and I did that for a couple of years. I pretty much sucked at it, but I had a good heart. But it's just because it wasn't my calling. I'm more of an evangelist, right? But I'll tell you, that was one of the hardest jobs I've ever done in my life. Being a pastor to people day in, day out, having to meet all their needs, the scrutiny of your family, the weirdness of people. Church would be good if the pastor could go, you're weird, get out of my church. You're judgmental. How long have you been here and you're still a bonehead? Get out. But I love pastors. My heart is
if
for
they
them.
marry a non-believer, then you can get rid of them.
Exactly. What? Are you dating him? Get out. Are you signed up on one of them dating apps? You're out.
Yeah, that's the idea of pastors speaking up on issues like that. Particularly we come through a season we're in, and it was a balance. As a pastor, for me, I'm in a region that had a lot of very, very diverse, and I spent part of my time telling people, hey, God's on the throne. We don't need to idolize an individual. Right. And then I spent the other part of my time trying to explain to people, I have a philosophy, and and I try to have a philosophy for whatever I'm going to live. I want to have a worldview that I live by. Got to have a field guide somewhere. And I try to tell people, rather than this idea of let's vote for the lesser of two evils, I'm a believer. I don't want to vote for any evils. So my idea is I'm going to go cast my vote for whatever has the greatest potential for good, and whatever that might be.
Right.
And so that for me rules out things like third parties, because there's not the potential for good.
That's really good.
Through this season, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen people not speaking up. Right now, we've seen the religion of wokeness that has come in and but pastors aren't speaking again. In fact, right now I'm working on an article. It'll be out before this comes out probably, but I'm going to write an article about Jesus, the socialist icon, and the things that Jesus actually thought. He's been stolen, co-opted lately. Well, Jesus was a socialist. Well, no, he wasn't. Jesus tells a parable of a man who hires people at different times of the day, pays them whatever he feels like paying them, and then says, didn't he have the right to do what he wanted to do with his money? We have the first socialist, if you will, says, hey, take that woman's praise and sell it and give it to the poor. And Jesus says, well, the poor are with you always. He fed the hungry twice and they all came to church.
Hey, send me that article when it's done. I'm definitely going to post it on my social medias. I'll shoot brilliant. That's brilliant.
But the idea is, we at the end of the day, we see all these wishy-washy things. We see this lack of courage. And then you're sitting over here saying, hey man, I've been there. I'm putting my literally my boots on the ground, my rear on the line, for lack of a better way of putting it. You're doing things you could die doing.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, one day we were moving toward a village that needed to be liberated from ISIS, and they had women and children there. I stopped counting at 30 mortars that were fired at us. They were just popping left and right, boom, boom, boom. And I said I counted 30, and I was like, I can't count much higher than that. And how about this summer? I brought my whole family over. I mean, my kids, and put them in a safe house. And when we were recovering orphans whose parents were just murdered by ISIS, and we'd roll in, get the kid, bring them out, make it back to our safe house, and tell my teenage kids, here, take care of this baby. I think she's got lice. She's malnutrition. And then tomorrow get her to the medical doctor. And my kids were doing that. That was their Camp Kickapoo, their Camp Waxahachie. It was Camp Iraq. And, of course, we're called to do that at that time. Not everybody is. And it doesn't mean we're more spiritual than anybody else. It just means we're acting and moving in our calling. But if what we do can in any way inspire and encourage other believers, well, then fantastic, right? Because, I mean, we all have to encourage one another. It's a big teamwork. So I have taken pastors over with me on certain little pumps, and you find out who's got a backbone and who doesn't real quick. And I remember looking at one guy going, he was freaking out, and I'm like, hey, you better pull it together right now. I'm going to put you on a plane, and you're going to head back. And there have been people we put on a plane, or they didn't even make the trip on the plane. They got stupid, and we're like, you're not hitting the ground with us. And then see them speak to thousands and have this large audience. And I sit there and go, if you knew what type of coward that man is, and let's say I don't even say coward because that's so harsh for people, but lacks the character. So, I've got people on my teams from and I'll just tell you, I'd much rather have a person who maybe he's got a little potty mouth, maybe, going to go light up a cigarette, whatever, take you, whatever, the stuff that, Christians don't do. But yet full integrity, great excellence, won't cheat or lie on you, won't talk behind your back, and will get done what needs to be done. I've seen it and I've lived it. And I just think that there's a whole group of people who the church needs. But we keep up this veneer of, well, it's about behavior modification. And I'm like, Heck, man, we've brought prostitutes home into our home before. It's like, what, man, hang out with the sinners. Just be a light. It doesn't have to change you at all. Me and my wife and our team, we've gone to the National Porn Convention a couple of times, and we'll be going back again, where we had a booth. And people, who I got the most pushback from was Christians. They're like, how can you go to the porn convention? I'm like, how can you not? This is where Jesus, look at the harvest. Oh my, I don't even have to move. They're coming to my booth. And we were praying with people. We handed out over 2,000 resources. And these were people in the industry by and large. And I remember girls let me going, and I got my wife with me. I'm not doing any private counseling. My wife's right next to me, and I'm like, they're all, why are you here? And we say, because God loves us. We love God and we love y'all. He told us to come here and help. And I go, we're here to help people who've been traumatized emotionally. Have you ever been traumatized emotionally? Do you struggle with depression? Do you struggle with anxiety or panic? I got a book and or a film that will help you. I want you to have it as a gift. They're like, golly. Probably one thing I remember was this dude. He was a photographer, a well-known pornography photographer. And he looked and he saw our stuff and he saw my dog. He saw videos from Iraq. We had a pretty nice booth and talking to people. We started talking. Next thing you know, he wants us to pray for him. And he said, man, I used to go to Sunday school with my grandmother, and I've been away from the church for decades. He wrote us an email a few weeks after that and said, I'm done with this business. I'm going into regular photography. And he goes, I found a church. I'm going back to church.
Awesome. Wow.
So again, we're all supposed to just be the fingerprint or thumbprint that God's made us to run in the lane that he's called us to. I don't think one's better than the other. And I certainly don't think the man behind the pulpit is better than anybody sitting in the pew. Not
Sure.
before that. It's his gift. But man, use the gift. Take a stand and lead. We just put in over $500,000 in Colorado Springs to develop a leadership and training center. And I will be bringing pastors out here in small groups. We will pour into them over a few days, 3 to 4 days, and literally help them with everything from mental fitness, character development, communicating with those who, are hard to deal with. And then we'll give them skill sets that they may like. If they've never shot a gun, we'll teach them how to shoot. If they would like to learn hand-to-hand self-defense, we're going to teach them that. They want to learn blade work. They want to practice simulation, because we're going to do that for security teams of churches all over the country. The church security teams will come in and get certified. So and then we'll pray, we'll fellowship, we'll have fun. And I think it seems like that will help pastors. I had a guy ask me, what are the in-depth spiritual things? I just go, if there are Christians coming from a church, most guys just want to hang out and talk to Delta dudes or Marines or people who've had to kill monsters and go, how did you make it in your marriage? And hear them say, well, I didn't. I got divorced, but I remarried and God's redeemed my life. Or, yeah, this is how I made it. And just talk real man stuff, right? Because we're not afraid of anything. And, we just want to encourage, build up, equip, and send people back better than when they come, because they're in their own little battle zones as husbands, fathers, businessmen. I'll tell you something. Do you remember a TV show called Dog the Bounty Hunter?
Yeah. Like, wasn't that like 2000 or something?
Yeah.
I feel like
it literally ended up being the most watched episodes or views of any reality TV show. Well, long story short, Dwayne and his fiance, because he lost his wife about a year ago, they were out here last Sunday, and we just broke bread, fellowship, hung out for all afternoon, and talked about the next season of life, what God wants to do in his life and their life, and doing ministry and reaching people. And there was even like chatter about us working together because, we go after pedophiles and help children globally, and we have a justice peace. But then also there was talk about revival tents, right? Setting up big old-timey revival tents and just inviting the masses to come sit underneath the tent. Can you imagine that crazy dude? And he does love God. He is rough as all get out, man. But guess what? I trust him, and I've spent time with him. I trust him. So that's something that, what does God want to do in these days? Let's continue to reach the lost. Let's build up and equip the believers for the work of the ministry. Let's have a heart for men who are what I call funnelers in the business world, making money. That's what they're supposed to do, while they're being a light. And then let's not forget about the least of these, from the womb all the way to the tomb. I think a great ministry is these convalescent care homes. We've had weird people turn them into stinking death zones. But I love seeing the body of Christ free. I love seeing people free. They're like, I'm not in a bondage to say anything. I stumble, but I get back up and keep moving. Because that's how we advance the kingdom of God, through his people, through his power and his word. So absolutely. That's it. I just backed up the truck. I'm ready to take an offering for myself.
We'll pass the plate. I thought we would, I actually thought that today's conversation would go a little different than the avenue that it went. I wanted to talk to you, and maybe we'll have to have you back on. I wanted to unpack the concept of trauma and unpack your story and unpack where people can go. But I feel like today, and I truly believe that the vast majority of the people that listen to this podcast are believers. There are those that aren't. It's got a wide audience, but I truly believe that God guides our conversations, and that's the beauty of this. And that's why, for all of you listening, why you continue to listen, it's because we do keep things conversational. You never know which way we're going to go. That being said, today you have really narrowed in on something. This is a year of helplessness. It's a year of hopelessness.
Yeah.
It's a year of being stuck, of being quarantined, of being shut down. And a lot of people are stuck in a million different things in their life, whether it's their job situation, their health situation, their career, their ministry, their Christianity, their marriage, whatever it is. And one of the things, early in your book, you talk about drinking. And you talk about a phrase that I think it was your grandfather said, where he said that drinking is just what we do. And that phrase shaped part of your concept about the use and abuse of substances. But obviously, what you were doing and what it seemed like you were made to do isn't what you ended up doing. And if anything, I think now you might say that helping is just what we do.
Yeah.
But for the people that are out there, the thing I'd like to get out of you today, and I'd love to have you back on again and have another conversation.
I want to come back. Yeah, I think this will be fun.
That for the people that are in a situation now, and you have been around the world, and you yourself, again, everybody out there, you need to get the Victor Marx story. I think it's in its 3rd edition now. You need to check that out. The edition, some heartfelt stuff there. I'm assuming about your team member and so on and so forth. That had those most likely part of the addition to the book, and that some good reading there. But you had what some counselors have called the worst childhood they've ever heard of. And you have been in some of the worst places on the globe at the worst time to be there. You've seen thousands of people on the worst day of their life. So what do you say to people that go, I'm listening to this podcast and I heard this guy tell some pretty cool stories, and he sounds like Billy Bad Butt, and he's all that stuff's great, but for me, who is the guy who's just trying to function and pay the bills, or me as the mom who's just trying to get the kids on the bus again, or whatever, what do I do? How do I move forward? What steps can you give me practically from a guy who looks like he got the wrong cards and then just bluffed his way to winning the game, or whatever happened? Like you said, what'd you say? Luck. You had an acronym for that.
Living under Christ's kindness. Luck.
Living under Christ's kindness. If there's anybody who can say you can come out of the worst and have what many would call the best, if there's anybody that can do that, it's you. So what do you say to people who right now, maybe it's not the worst day or year of their life, but for some of them it might be.
Yeah.
And for some of them, they're hopeless, helpless,
Yeah.
stuck, frustrated. What do you say to them today?
First, they're not alone. They're not isolated, alone individual in this. This is probably one of the worst years America has experienced in decades. So you're not alone. Second is never give up. No matter how bad things are, it will pass. So don't give up. Purpose in your mind. I'm not giving up. I don't care how bad it is. Eat gravel, but then get back up. And then next is God loves you. I mean, God actually really, really loves you. You don't feel it. You don't think he does, but he does. And the way you feel doesn't change the truth. And then the next thing, if you don't know Christ, I would definitely say, God, I want to surrender my life to the Lord. I need to be forgiven of my sin. When you're forgiven of your sin, there's a burden that's lifted off of you that you're carrying during these hard times that you shouldn't be carrying. And it's called freedom. And be what Jesus called born again, where he actually will forgive you, cleanse you, and fill you with his spirit. And then your eyes are fixed and focused on heaven. That's the perspective. Because that time on earth, no matter if you're 10, 50, or 75, we are heading toward heaven, right? And then the last thing I would say is understand there's a real enemy. His name is Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, whatever you want to call him, but he has hordes of demons that afflict humanity. And I'm of the sort that believes oftentimes demons, real demons, study and stalk people, especially Christians. They're the ones who will fire a dart into your mind and say, there is no hope. Boom, nobody loves you. Boom, you're a loser. Boom, you'll never get married. Boom, you're stuck in this marriage forever. I mean, it's whatever type of tormenting thoughts the enemy needs to inflict upon you through fiery darts, he will. So be aware of the enemy and then do what you need to fight him aggressively, not passively. I've been hammered by the enemy over my life. As a Christian, I know what it's like to put a pistol in my mouth. I know what it's like to just go into depression, have to be, I get all that. And it wasn't until I really understood the extent of the wicked one. Now, I had psychological issues I needed to deal with, and I had good counselors to help me. But there's a real evil, and you have to do what Ephesians says. Stand in the evil day against the evil one. Put on the helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit. Have your feet covered with boots of the gospel. Right? These are offensively. That's why I chuckle when I hear people say, well, that's only in defense. I'm going, have you ever been in war? Have you ever been in combat? You just don't stay in a bunker with all your stuff. You advance and destroy. So spiritually, you got to be a lot more aggressive. And then this is it. Take every thought captive, because the battlefield is in your mind. It's in your mind. Take those thoughts captives. And say that can't be from God. So it's got to be from the enemy. I just plead the blood of Jesus over my mind. Lord, I want your thoughts. I want to think on what's good, right, pure, true, lovely. And then exercise and eat right. It's amazing how much better you can feel when you're exercising. And we can do it. We just sometimes need encouragement. Or me, I got grandkids now, so I'm like, man, I gotta keep moving just to keep up with them. It takes a lot of energy. But those are the things I would encourage people to do. And if you can find one friend, like one real friend, that you can say to, oh gosh, man, and then they can feel your heart, but then encourage you, right? not just sit there and go, oh, I know, what are we going to do? And it's like, dude, you're dragging me down more than ever. Come on, that's why I need you to hold my arms up a little bit. But one friend is a gift. So yeah, I'm thankful. And feed your mind with worship music, teachings, whatever you can. Keep that mind clear. So that's my prescription. And I hope it helps one person listening. And I'm thankful to have been here and spent some time with you, Patrick.
Absolutely, Victor. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let me ask this: where can people follow you? What social media are you available on? Website? Can you drop that info? Let us know. Everybody listening, where can they get more Victor Marx?
They can fly into Baghdad, Iraq, catch a taxi, come up to no, just don't do that, people. Victor Marx with an X. My name is spelled with an X, like Groucho Chico and Harpo. VictorMarx.com or Victor Marx on any social medias. And, you can track with me because I do social media kind of like a journal. So it's like a president of this big highfalutin organization said, you never really know what's going to come out of your mouth when you post. I go, yeah, that's true. So, and I do apologize if I offend anybody with my delivery today, but I'm not sorry about my content. There we go.
No, all good, man. Great times. Victor, thank you so much
You bet.
for joining us today. Everybody get out there, get a copy of the Victor Marx story. You can find it. It's available in Kindle. It's available, I'm sure, through his outlets. You could find it wherever you get great books. Get your copy of the Victor Marx story. It's in its 3rd edition, and I know that you will be blessed by it. Again, Victor, thank you for joining us today.
Will you have me back?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I know, because I know where you are. I will stalk you till I get back on again. We'll talk about the trauma relief and whatnot. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I've listened to some of your stuff, and you're a solid dude. And I do appreciate you, or I certainly wouldn't be on this podcast with you. So God bless you, man. Stay the course, okay?
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. And for everybody else, I hope that today has been more than a conversation for you. Thanks again for being part of More Than a Conversation today. If you'd like more content like this, check out my blog at www.pastorconley.com. That's PastorConley.com. Again, that's PastorConley.com. I'd also love to see you join us in worship at Garden Sanctuary. If you're ever in Rock Hill, South Carolina, or the greater Charlotte area, we'd love to have you stop by and worship with us. Check us out at www.gardensanctuary.org. That's gardensanctuary.org. Until next time, I hope this has been more than a conversation.